Yes. 10 years. 10 years. A decade. We are so excited because today we are going to get to celebrate with Stephanie with talking about 10 years for Take Roots Consulting and some of the wonderful things. And what I'm hoping comes out of this is maybe some things that'll spark ideas, spark inspiration, spark that motivation to get started and to do the thing finally. But so today's room is going to be all about celebrating a mile marker and what that looks like in the context of Take Roots. So I'm very excited to be here. My name is Elizabeth Doss, and I am a social media consultant. I make animated GIFs and all of those things, and we can talk about it later. But I want to hand things over first off to you, Stephanie, to introduce yourself, and then we're going to dig into the magical world that has been Take Roots for this last season. So feel free to go ahead.
Well, as soon as you said a decade, I went, oh gosh, I'm feeling a little old, but I should just say wiser, right? More
Yes.
seasoned.
Yes.
Yeah, hello. Happy, what is it? Biz anniversary
Bizversary. Yeah. Yeah.
for me and my little biz, if you will, Stephanie Gillis Palgard, the brand architect behind Take Roots Consulting, which officially today started 10 years ago today when I incorporated that name. I work with small businesses and nonprofits on that PR marketing, not just the traditional ways of doing things, but really embracing, even to your point, Elizabeth, on what you do in social media and taking all the tools and putting them in a toolkit and talking strategy and doing storytelling and amplifying messages. And yes, there's some fun development and there's some events, and we're going to probably dive in to all of that because over 10 years as Take Roots, but I've been doing all of these wonderful magical things for over 25 years now, I
Yeah.
can actually say, which again just makes me more seasoned, I guess.
Yes. Exactly. So Stephanie, um, it doesn't look like we've gone live on LinkedIn, and I know it. So it's up to you. We can keep going, and I could just share the link from YouTube to LinkedIn. But I wanted to let you know that. So what do you want to do?
Yeah, and you know, it actually was when I first logged in this morning, just as a side note for people, sometimes tech doesn't work and it's gonna happen, and just be
Oh,
prepared for it.
sorry. Did you hear me? You probably didn't hear me.
I did.
Oh, about LinkedIn. Oh,
Yeah, when
okay.
I
That's
first
weird. I
logged in, it
muted.
said that it was having trouble,
Okay.
connecting, and so I disconnected and tried again. But we can certainly try to
Oh,
do it, but
I'm fine. I'll just share the
let's just
link.
go.
I will share the link from YouTube over on there. So
Yeah.
okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
that.
we're good. We're good.
Um,
It
no,
just goes
so
to show we're doing this in real time. This is what happens. This is business. This is life. This is the journey of entrepreneurship. So, hey, it just falls in line.
yeah. So Stephanie, I one thing I'm curious about is there had to have been signals or signs for you as you're working within another company, as you were doing some of these other projects. How did it start coming to the surface of what you could do and harness it and what it could look like for others? Does that make sense? Like
Oh yeah,
where did
totally.
it start in that side of
Yeah.
things? Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna go on a little journey. There's gonna be a little storytelling moment here. Because I was thinking about this, and it's been a wild ride these last few days, just coming into what today really meant and thinking through way back, long before I even started a professional career. And I can say that my first glimpse, and you're going to laugh, and maybe this will resonate with some people that watch this back. My first glimpse into entrepreneurship, I believe, actually sparked by the time I was about 9 or 10. And I share that Being a young girl growing up in a small town in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, and my dad was in sales, and he was the bread salesman, and he had this route. And during the summer months when you're not in school, it was always fun to go and go along for the ride, literally. Except back there, he would drop us off with a box and a knife, and if we were smart, we packed a lunch, and we would pick chanterelle mushrooms all day in the woods. And then our dad would come back and pick us up, and he would bring us to the plant, and they would weigh the mushrooms. And at the time, I mean, you're thinking sometimes you would get 60 or $80 for these chanterelle mushrooms that were only grown in certain parts, and we just happened to live next to areas that were blossoming with it. And all of a sudden you're like, what, I just made that kind of money doing, hanging out in the woods, and with my siblings, and doing that for a few hours. And it was kind of like, oh, there's money to be made in things. And it was always like that. It was always in the back of my mind. And so Take Roots is, of course, a few years thereafter, after working in corporate for a very long time, almost 20 years, still in that PR, marketing, investor relations space, and doing a lot of time on planes, if I'm being honest. My last 6 or 7 years in corporate, and I had a very young family. My son was experiencing a lot of anxiety every time mom had to go on a plane or get ready to go on the Monday and not be back until the Friday. And I really felt pulled in a lot of different directions. And knowing that I was making these sacrifices at the time for what was the better of my family, and being able to contribute to the household, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy. And it was a real struggle. And the mom guilt is real, for anybody that resonates with that. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? What can I do differently? And my partner, my husband, who I've been with for just about 30 years now, he just looked at me and said, whatever's going to make you happy, you got to go do that. And I was sitting, so then I met up with a friend who was once an employer of mine in a coffee shop, and he shared with me that he needed my help, and I was the only person that could help in that moment. And he felt so strongly about this. And at the time, I was struggling with my own level of confidence. And I thought, how can he believe so strongly that I'm the one that needs to help do X, Y, or Z within his business, and I'm not sure I'm there yet. But it was that one latte in a coffee shop that got me going, I think I have to do this. And um, within 24 hours of that coffee meeting, I had incorporated Take Roots. And it was a bet on me kind of moment. It was like, if he can have that kind of confidence in me, I need to bet on me as well. And it was like, I don't know what's going to happen. I need to think through strategically, what does this timing look like? I had a kind of high profile job in a very big organization, and I needed to make some really important decisions. But that really is what sparked it. And it was because of the relationships that I had built over my corporate career, that when I decided to go out on my own, um, it was still scary. Like, I was terrified. I was terrified. I mean, you were leaving this stable paycheck. You were leaving everything that you knew, and you did it every day, and you were kind of like, well, what do I do every day? Because you just knew, you just did. And so what I'm going to start a business? Are you crazy? Like, and I believe my family thought I was crazy. Why would you take that risk? Why? And I just felt like I needed to. It was such an important piece of what I didn't know was going to happen, but I I had to know that I tried.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Do you remember your first project as Take Roots? Like
It was
it,
actually with the gentleman that I sat in the coffee shop with.
wow.
Yeah, yeah. It was jumping in right away into that world and helping establish a few things and
Mhm.
really building out some strategy and getting ready to go and raise some money and do some things. And
Mhm.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
So just a little bit about what Take Roots has done, is doing, etc. Like so part of what you, it's not just events because
right.
it's like
That's such a
all
small part, actually.
right. That's just like the bridge between people not knowing about it, doing something about it, you know. And so I would love to hear kind of maybe a little bit about what that process has looked like on several of the cases that you've worked on, from getting with the team, absorbing who they are, what they're trying to do, what the goal of this thing is, and how do you tell that story. Anyway, I would be curious
Yeah.
about
Eh,
that.
No, you're right. I mean, I think a lot of people, if they're following me and they see me talk about events, they might be like, "Oh, she's an event planner," and it's not that that's incorrect, because I have done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of events over the course of my career, but I pick and choose which ones I want to work on, and I I don't take that lightly. I'm very grateful to be in a place where, if something really speaks to me and I feel like I can jump in and help somebody or an organization, whether it be a nonprofit or a for profit or a, public, private, doesn't matter. But that's just such a small component. And really for me, it's that capacity building. And it starts a lot of the time, if I'm being honest, it starts with somebody saying, you need to talk to Stephanie. And at first they're like, well, okay, like what does she do? Oh, she does like this and this and this and this and this. And so that's why it can be overwhelming when you're trying to show up even online and tell somebody, hi, I'm Stephanie, this is what I do. Well, I mean, how do you possibly summarize almost 30 years of a career and say, oh, I do these three things? Well, no, I don't. I mean, but again, if you're looking at what are the buckets or service offerings, that's like the easiest way to explain public relations, right? Media coaching, pitching to media, drafting news releases, doing fund development, building strategies that help them, do their storytelling in a meaningful way to reach an important or the appropriate audience, building websites, doing branding. It's so big that it's almost like, whoa, she does that. Like, well, what? That can't be. Well, yeah, I mean, give or take, 30 years, yeah, you start to really build your skills. And I've just had the pleasure of working with so many, but it often starts with, you need to speak to Stephanie. And then it's really about just a straight up conversation. What are the goals? What are you trying to do? What have you tried? What's working? And sometimes they don't know what's working. And they think something's working, and then I'll be like, because I love to dive in deeper. I want to go below the surface. I want to go under the hood, if you will, and truly understand somebody's business. And I guess when we say the word seasoned, being that I've been around the block, what the beauty is that I can often get to that very quickly with a company, and it doesn't matter what industry they're in. I do work a lot in the health space, in the medical, in the life sciences, med device, for sure. That's been a big part of both my corporate, and if you were to look on my website and see the client roster, you would see a lot of that. But there's an awful lot of nonprofits, a lot of one-on-one, solopreneurs that I've worked with, just to help coach them around, strategy and these content pillars, and that we talk about a lot when we're doing and hosting Cultivate Weekly. So it always is dependent. I don't work with just one type of business or one type of entrepreneur. And that's what I love about what I do.
Wow, wow, wow. Because I hear so much in that. You just mentioned the medical industry, but there are people who are diagnosticians.
Mm-hmm.
People that take all of the symptoms, the ones that you're saying and they're observing, and so there is a part of what you do where you can walk into these businesses, these brands, you stand beside them and you let it soak into you what they're the words they're saying, and then saying, well, the message that you've been giving is not matching what you've been trying
Mm-hmm.
to say. And do you spend much time in the because people I think people think through parts of what they want to do, but it's oftentimes they don't follow the whole process. So like I think of like like fundraising. They may think we need to get money. Well, but have you told the story and have you given people a way to give or taught them
That's
how? And
right.
so this is just Elizabeth asking questions now.
Yeah.
But have you do you map out the journey of the event to and the follow up? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
what
it's
yeah.
everything from what they're currently doing and what they have to do before they're even thinking about an event. Are they even ready to host an event? And even if it is an annual event, all right, let's take a pause because fund development, sponsorship, implementing donor recognition programs. To have they ever thought about a monthly donor program? You hear a lot about Giving Tuesday campaigns. Well, if you're just going to show up on a Giving Tuesday, but you haven't told your story the entire year, or you've never developed your email list, there's so many pieces that need to be considered. And that's, I think, the beauty of working with someone who has that umbrella of knowledge. So when I say I really take a holistic view, that's not a buzzword. That's a real thing that happens when I meet with someone. And that's when I say, when I'm diving in and I'm asking them a lot of questions and I'm looking at their data and I'm looking at their open rate on their emails, or the frequency to which they're communicating, whether that, when's the last time you refreshed your website? Do is it all stale information? When have you showed people or your donors the impact of their dollars? How are you connecting to them? As it's not about the money. People think it's about the money, but it's not about the money. Because if you're storytelling properly and you're showing impact, that makes the difference. Even when I do, so I'm a grant writer. I also review. I can be a grant reviewer for people. Reviews grants before they're submitted, understanding the storytelling component of it. Oftentimes, there are nonprofits specifically that I've worked with, and again, they have a small team, but they've got the finance person over here working the numbers, then they've got the programming person over here doing something, and the director of operations is doing another thing, and then the volunteer coordinator, all in one grant, but it doesn't even read cohesively, and so again, having somebody else review it with that lens and be able to give them some suggestions and recommendations and to show what sustainability is going to look like. Funders, regardless of who they are not, they want to know that if they give you X dollars, doesn't matter if it's 5,000 or 50,000, how are you not just going to use those dollars right now within a specific project, but how are you going to build in sustainability so that you don't keep coming back to those same funders asking for more money? So if you don't have a sustainability plan, right, or how you're going to build into it over a 2 or 3 year project, you're likely not going to get those dollars. And so there's a lot of different pieces that need to be considered. And so a lot of people will reach out to me and say, hey, Stephanie, we need to raise some money because we want to do this thing. And as soon as I start asking questions, they go, oh, I never thought of that. And that's okay. And that's not a knock on anyone. It's just sometimes we're not asking the right questions because we're so focused on the goal is to get the money. And so we really need to almost reverse engineer that, do a work back plan. What is that storytelling opportunity? And have you unlocked some of these other opportunities? Stacking grants, matching dollars? Do you have a volunteer database where you're capturing even your volunteer hours? Because volunteer hours, at least here in Canada, they equate to a certain dollar amount that can be used in a grant, as matching dollars. So you may not have the money in the bank, but you have all these wonderful volunteers that are giving hours every month, and that equates to dollars. But sometimes people don't think about that, or they didn't know that. And I'm not going to sit here and claim that I know all the rules about everything, when it comes to different funders, because there's restrictions within some of those dollars. But it's nice to be able to walk in to any conversation with a sense of curiosity, and to be able to lean into that and then draw upon your own experience, personal, professional, all of those years of experience, what worked, what didn't work, and be able to offer that up to an organization that might be kickstarting something for the first time, or might be on their fifth year of doing an event and just want to see it come to life again under a fresh lens.
I love that. I love that we're doing that. So I would love, because I know we're it's crazy how this time has flown
I
by
know.
already. But I would love, I have my own story, like I would love for you to talk about, but I want you to choose the next one. So if you don't have one, I'll lob this one up. But can you give us one of the stories of the team you've worked with, that you were like, I get to do this. Like, I can't believe that this is what I get to. This is what Take Roots
Just
is getting to
one?
do right
Oh
now.
gosh.
Or as many as you want. I could be
Listen.
here all
Okay,
day. So
I'm gonna tell you one story. I'm gonna leave out organizational names and stuff like that, but just because I was reminiscing a lot, and as I say, I sit here and I hold the pen that I signed the first contract with, and then subsequently continued to buy all the pens that were the same to represent, what I was doing. And every time I would look at it, it meant something. And then there's this cup that I'm holding, and this will make sense for anybody who reads the Seeds newsletter over on LinkedIn. But really bad logo, for first business card, really really bad. Coming from the person who does the PR, the marketing, the
yeah.
branding stuff, it's like, oh, you know what, I just wanted to get something out. I was more worried about like doing the client work. And because I'll go back to the relationship piece, everything I do is based in relationships. And I've had, and if I get emotional, which I, as soon as I say the word emotional, it's like it triggers something. Um, So I've had the privilege to work with a lot of amazing people. And some people have just continued to show up and be a cheerleader and take me with them as they go. And they move forward and do incredible things. And what's really amazing about it is, in one particular case, I've had the privilege over several years to do a lot of traveling on behalf of this one client. And we have found ourselves, doing investigator meetings and booths at major conferences and beautiful events in Chicago, in Madrid, in Barcelona, and San Antonio, and the list goes on. But what I wanted to share is such a meaningful moment for me, after spending some time in Spain and there with this particular client. We jumped on a train from Barcelona and we ended up in Paris. And Paris for me, woo wee, it was on my bucket list since I was in high school. Small town girl, big dreams, the whole bit. And I remember being on the train, going through the countryside and going, I am going to Paris. And what's funny, and the reason why the coffee cup is important, is because going on that trip, I packed a coffee cup. And as I made my way through, I would take these pictures of me, or or the coffee cup finding its way through Spain. Me sitting in Paris at a coffee shop, with my Nutella filled donut, and me standing in front of the Eiffel Tower, crying like a baby, like I am right now, going, if there's any way to measure what I've been able to do, it's right now in this moment. And so there's a picture, there's many pictures. I think I took about 500 pictures of the Eiffel Tower from every angle during the course of the very short time I was there, day, night, at dusk, sunrise, you name it. But there's a moment when I go up to my Airbnb, and I specifically picked this place because it was 2 blocks away from the Eiffel Tower. And as you walk out of the building, you see the Eiffel Tower, and there's a picture of me with my coffee cup holding it up and cheersing, basically, cups up to the Eiffel Tower. And it's that, but it's all because of the relationships. I'd like to also think it's because I'm good at what I do, but those relationships brought me there, and through the work that I'm able to do with people that believe in who I am and trust me wholeheartedly to bring me into their organization and have me be a part of their team. There's no there really are no words. I know I'm a words girl. I've just talked a lot about it, but there are no real true words. It's just that feeling. It's that feeling of knowing, oh my gosh, if this is what I made it feels like, I've made it. And I could be totally okay. And then, you fast forward a year later, and here we are sitting in COVID going, uh-oh, what's going to happen to my business? So, if you'd ever thought about relationships before that, you thought, whoa, what am I going to do now? And so it's just been a wild, wild ride. And there's so many moments of gratitude that I have for this journey. And it's not been easy. There's been a lot of difficult, challenging moments. But when you bet on yourself and you believe it to the core that there's something here I have to do, I'm meant to do it, you do it. And now you're sitting here going, where did the last 10 years go? So sorry for all the tears, but they are happy tears. Yeah.
They are happy tears. And yet, Stephanie, I needed to hear this today. Like, I think about where I'm at my own journey
Mm.
and weighing what's important, what's not important.
Yeah.
What's not important to me, it's important to somebody else. Like, let them
Sure.
let them have that importance.
Right.
But even that, this has afforded me this moment, and the dreams, we have to have dreams, like to know when they come true. Like,
Yes.
you know anyway, I
Exactly.
love every bit of that. And I do love the part where you're talking about the relationships part of it, um and the importance of investing in those,
Oh,
and cultivating, think of it, cultivating them.
yeah, right.
Because one of your the phrases associated that you've held for a while is rooted in purpose. That take
Yes.
roots is rooted in purpose. And I hear that in these things that you're trying to get a hold of and pull out the purpose of
Mm-hmm.
these brands, businesses, events, fundraisers, restructuring, like these
Yeah.
news conferences, these things, like you're trying to pull out the purpose of it to represent it so other people can get excited for the purpose. But what you're doing today, as we're reviewing, is we're pulling out the purpose of Take Roots and looking at it and saying, I say this to anybody who's watching, and I'm saying it to myself in my business, pull out the purpose for what
Mm-hmm.
you're doing, not just the why of I want to have this and I want to have that. No, the why of why am I showing up every day? What is this, thing? Anyway, so all of those things. And I know we're technically out of time on that side of things. I did have one more question because you went through a big rebrand in the last year or two.
I
And that
did.
was quite an experience because it was a little bit of this digging in because you had years by this point. A lot of people, because they
Yeah.
start the branding before the business has even started. Well, it's very
Yeah.
different for a rebrand, and I would just be
Sure.
curious a little bit about that. I see the logo above you too, and even talking just a little bit about what it's like to after you've already walked it for a while
Yeah.
to then go back and take a look at these things and pull out to reframe it. Anyway, that would be my
Yeah.
last question.
It was well overdue, and yet it was the perfect time. Bizarre, right? Lived through a lot and experienced a lot, and was at the point of going, oh my gosh, I didn't want to send anybody to my website. I'm so embarrassed. It doesn't reflect who I am. It doesn't reflect truly what I do, and who I have the privilege to serve, and who I want to continue to serve, or what does that organization look like, or that individual that needs some of that help. And um, so I wanted, first of all, to work with outside of myself, because, as I said before, I can do these things, and I do these things, and I've done these things, but it's really hard to do it for yourself. Like, case in point, it's really hard to do it for yourself. You just want to get something out there, and to say how proud I am of where it's gone, but the work that went into doing it. And I think that's what you're trying to get at, Elizabeth, is that what was this journey for me? And it was a lot of conversation, and it was involving two very incredible human beings. Richard and Brandon gave me such care. Like, they allowed me to be emotional during it, to be a critic. I couldn't fully take my branding, PR, marketing hat off and go, just figure that out. They put some things in front of me, and I said no. That's not what I'm looking to get to. I needed it to really reflect what Take Roots is, and just even how we got to the design of the logo. It was so intentional, and I really felt like it was me, and that Brandon, he was so kind, and took my feedback and goes, okay, I get it. And he would rework, and I'd be like, oh, we're so close. Like, I can see it. It's like so close. And even just going through that journey of like the fonts and what they had to, say, and be established. Now, you may not see it super clear in here, but there's Roman numerals in the middle of that, and that represents 2015, right? When Take Roots was founded. What's the idea behind the shape? It's a seed. It's the whole thing. It's the taking the root. It is the foundation of what I do. And yet, what is the levels? It's the relationships. It's the clients that we work with, and that I build a shield. That I help them, and the trusted partner that I am. So it all came together, but I had to let go. I couldn't fully let go, because that's not who I am. They appreciated and respected that, and allowed me to be a part of the whole process. And I feel like that is how we got to where I am. The color coding, like, they were like, Stephanie, you're fully caffeinated all the time. You're full of energy. We want big, bold, whatever. I'm like, no, I want more subtle, more classy, more whatever. It was a lovely experience, but boy, oh boy, when you're normally on the other side of the table, and this as a creative, Elizabeth, it's really hard to take that step back and entrust someone else to properly encapsulate what it is that you're trying to say, but the outcome, I mean, I couldn't be more proud. When I send people to the website, when I'm using the gifts that you created, that are representative, really, I think, truly reflect who I am and my energy. I'm not for everyone. I know that not everyone can handle a fully caffeinated Stephanie. And, we throw that around a lot. I'm not always caffeinated, although one may have a hard time telling the difference because I'm just a high energy person. But I love to bring the passion into everything that I do. You're not going to get less of me. I put everything into it. And when I say things like, I bet on me, I want people to bet on themselves and I want them to know that I'm going to bet on them too. And I think that that's really important to have a partner, that wants to work with you and with your team.
No, I think that's lovely. And two things I see when I look at your logo, I see the spade that's the starting of the journey, like that digs the hole and
Yeah.
plants the seed. But I also see the tree rings that represent wisdom of years and of knowledge, and you think about when they have to cut a tree down and you see how long it's been around because every ring represents a year. Now,
Yes.
yours has to be symbolic. It would take up the whole it would take up the whole page if we did all of the rings, all the
Yeah.
30 rings of
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
experience that you're bringing to this, but
Mhm.
that representation of I'm not just bringing to you a kitchen garden that's lasting only
Mhm.
for the summer. No, we're building something that is evergreen.
Yeah. That is so good. And even if you look at roots, the fact that the
Yep.
O's are touching,
Yes.
that's me with my clients. Like that's what that represents.
I love it.
Again, every detail was so intentional that I can't be prouder of what it became. And the fact that it was already, this summer will mark 2 years since I started that. And it took four and a
Wow.
half months,
Yeah. Yeah.
4.5 months to get to that finished product.
Yeah.
Because again, yes, I know that that's an important piece, but I was busy doing the work. I was busy,
Yes.
on the clients, and I didn't want to rush this process. It really just needed to feel right.
Yeah.
And I just, yeah, like the unveiling of it, the story behind it, and thank you for highlighting, the rings and what that means. It all came together so beautifully.
Yes. Absolutely beautiful. Well, Stephanie, I'm really thrilled for you in this this piece because a couple of things that are rare. It's rare for a lot of businesses to get past the first 2 year like mark number one. That's like bananas.
Mm-hmm.
But the places you've traveled, the people you've met, the funds that you've raised, the causes that you've championed, the stories that you've told, like you get this bundle of beauty that you have platformed for multiple people across the world, honestly, to be able to be a part of this. And 10 years ago it was this one little push, and yet it's led to some of your favorite adventures in your life is
Yes.
just following that curiosity, following that little push. And so I love that, and I cannot wait to see where you are headed because I know whatever you choose, it's going to lead to the next greatest adventure. And so whether that's 10 more years the take roots or where your curiosity pulls you next, I know that you're always reaching towards the best and the better and the how can you serve the most people in the best way. And so anyway, do you have any final thoughts as we're closing this out, just things that you want to get out there about where you've been, where you're going, and all of the in between?
I think there's no, I don't want to sum it up. This is just it's a moment, but it's a collection of moments. So it is a milestone, but it's just another marker, and it should be celebrated. And we often talk about, it's not just these big ones that should be celebrated. Celebrate every time You lean into your curiosity. Celebrate every time you have the privilege to work with an individual or an organization that they've chosen to trust you with their important piece of work. And how are you bringing it to life, or what is the contribution that you're going to make? And so stay curious, just stay curious. That's what I want to do every single day. um, and yeah, I don't know what's going to be next, but that's kind of the fun in it. And I don't want to lose that.
Exactly, exactly. I did see that Richard's watching on YouTube and he said, "Congrats, Steph." And then in all caps, "I am very proud of you." So thanks, Richard, for watching and always cheering people on and helping us even when, like, I don't know if Stephanie's have been as emotional as mine when I'm talking about my business and where I want to be and all those things.
Well, I
Anyway,
don't know. There were a lot of tears
there
shed,
were.
but as I say, they are happy tears. And I think until you sit in true reflection, and that's why I think maybe it's like just bubbling under the surface today, knowing that this day is here and thinking through, because you can get so caught up or head down in the business that we forget to just, you know, take a moment, look around, look back. Look back. Don't be scared to look back. There again, it's not all roses. I'm not sitting here saying that. There have been many lessons learned, many pivots that have been made, um, and a lot of hard decisions needed to be made along the way. And um, but it's brought me to where I am. So I have to be grateful for the entire journey, regardless of how tough it might have been, different parts. It really does. And it will continue to evolve. And again, just that staying curious is the magical piece. If we're not curious, then I'm not sure why we're doing it. And I need to be, let's just end it with rooted in that, and rooted in that purpose.
Exactly. Well, it's been an absolute privilege because I've gotten to be around here for the last couple of years of watching all of the adventures you've gone on, etc. And if you want to stay tuned and find out what's going to happen next in the next chapter of Take Roots and the journey and all of these things, please continue to join us here every week on Cultivate Weekly. We are here every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m., usually on LinkedIn. Don't know what that's about, but we'll figure it out. Facebook and on YouTube. And we're on Riverside. If you ever want to join us here, we would love to have you guys here. So thank you so much for joining us. And Stephanie, happy, happy, happy anniversary to you and all of the people you've touched through Take Roots and being rooted in purpose. Did you want to say a
Mm,
goodbye as we?
Cups
Okay,
up.
cups
Cups up
up.
to each and every one of you. Thank you.